Deshaun Watson restructuring, we knew it had to come. But how does this play into what is the Browns' plan? Second overall quarterback this year, $46 million remaining on Deshaun Watson's contract is a very doable salary for a starting quarterback in 2026. Should they want to go in that direction? Myles Garrett says, "I want out." Abdul Carter's sitting there as a possible replacement if they go ahead and trade him away. What can you tell us about Andrew Berry's plan here for Cleveland?
Well, I think it's important to start back a couple of months ago. I did some reporting on this in November and December ahead of one of our games where we had the Browns. And, I know back then, this is before the second Achilles tear, that their plan was to add a lot of competition to the quarterback room, which is different than the way they approached it the last couple of years with Deshaun. What they were putting in the room before was what they felt like was support for Deshaun, not competition for him. And that was one of the reasons why the divorce, from Joe Flacco happened, is because they wanted to set it up to support him. That was going to change from really like almost the beginning of last season. Like they felt like after the way he played, and then he tears the Achilles, that it was time to get better production out of the position. So that's the baseline. Like this is not just related to the second Achilles tear. From there, I think their approach has been, we're going to look at the draft. We are going to turn over every rock on every player in the draft because we know we're going to have a high pick, and we're going to attack the veteran market too. And it wouldn't surprise me, Rich, if they pull both levers. Now, what does that look like? I think because of the number that they have on their books from Deshaun Watson and the guarantees and the cash, not just the cap, but the cash, the $92 million they have fully guaranteed over the next 2 years for Deshaun. They have to get a little creative in the veteran market. That's why I think most people have looked at it and said Kirk Cousins would be the perfect guy because you'd probably be working off the offset. You get him in for the veteran minimum and still draft one. The problem is you don't control Kirk Cousins becoming available. He might become available next week if things get really ugly. He might not be available for 3 months. So you can't really control that if you're the Browns. So now what do you do if you don't know whether or not he's going to be available, if he can't force his way out because he doesn't want to be in Atlanta? Then it's, well, do we look at Daniel Jones plus a rookie? And that's part of why, by the way, Rich, they're having the 30 visits with the quarterbacks this week. They're trying to get as complete a picture as they possibly can of Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders so they know what they're going to be dealing with in the draft. And they know if there's really what they view as a real answer there. Or, do they have to go heavier on the veteran option and then, maybe they don't deem one of those guys worth a top 2 pick and they say, okay, we'll draft one in the second or third round. Either way, they're going to come out of this, I believe, with a new veteran and a new rookie on the roster. It's just sort of a sliding scale what levels those are at.
Interesting. So you're saying they're kind of going early on their visits with Ward and Shedeur prior to free agency because that will inform them how they approach free agency with what aggressiveness and who to target. Interesting. And I'm just wondering, listen, I totally understand that this is Andrew Berry's plan. It makes total sense, complete sense. But also makes sense that if you're telling this to Myles Garrett, he would say, yeah, I don't want any part of that as I'm pushing 30. Like and I'm wanting a trophy like that. That sounds like far away from a trophy is what, to be honest with you, or it sounds like, we're still trying to figure this thing out. Hang with us. We need you to win some football games while we get up to that speed, right? I mean, or you believe that Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, second overall, could just continue this remarkable string of rookie quarterbacks drafted in that position. I mean, that's the question about Garrett.
Yeah, that's hard too, because I think there's part of it that's on the Browns to show Garrett how serious they are about winning right now. Because let's be honest, Rich, like any guy in Myles Garrett's position, he doesn't care about your 3-year plan. You know what I mean? Like he wants to compete for a championship right now. Like tomorrow's not promised to him. So he wants to go chase rings right now. And I do think he's being forthright when he says this isn't about the money. This is a guy who thinks a little bit differently. And yeah, I mean, could I see new money being part of whatever the conclusion is here? Absolutely. but I don't think it's the driving force. I think the driving force is he wants to go win somewhere. So that's part of it, right? Like it's showing Myles Garrett that you're serious about winning in the here and the now. And then I think kind of attached to that for the Browns, this is just me talking, okay? But I think like the Browns, like I think it's on them to take a serious look on the mirror, in the mirror, and just say to themselves, with guys like Joel Bitonio and Denzel Ward and Myles Garrett most of all, right? These guys that are either in the heart of their primes or the back end of their primes. I think a huge part of this is looking at it and saying, can we get good enough fast enough to still have these guys in the primes of their careers while we're competing for championships, right? Like in other words, can we get this thing where it needs to be at quarterback most of all and all over the place in general, in the AFC, in that environment, in the division with Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson, in a conference with Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen? Can that happen fast enough where when it does happen, Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward and those guys who've been at the core are still at the top of their games? And I think, to me, like that's the question you have to ask if you're the Browns that informs you whether or not you seriously consider trading him.
Albert Breer here on
but they haven't. But just to be clear, they haven't shown
I heard the same
indication to anyone that they're going to do it.
But
so
the two things I heard at the combine, Albert, one that I mentioned in my my annual rumors segment, is that the Browns truly have no intention of trading Myles Garrett. And the other one I heard is that, they're definitely taking a quarterback second overall, but I don't know about that. Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.